The first thing you need to understand is that nobody's coming to save you. Nobody. No girlfriend, no boyfriend, no relationship, no parent, no friend, no job. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to get you. And if you clicked on this video for any reason other than morbid curiosity, then I want to say I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. And nobody else is going to say that to you. Nobody is going to give you credit. Even if you do make it out, nobody's going to give you credit and say, oh, look at you. Look at what you've been through. Wow. Credit where credit is due. Applause. Nobody's going to say that. And also, if you're currently going through it, nobody will knock on your door and say, hey, you know what? You just relax for a while, because what you're handling is just physically and mentally impossible for one human being to take. So you know what? You just sit down and relax. You know, you can pick up life and move on whenever you feel like it, whenever you've coped with the situation. Nobody's going to do that. So you better accept this right now, or by the end of the video at least, if you want a fighting chance in hell to keep your sanity. All right, let's talk about suffering as a general concept, because there are different levels of suffering. There's emotional suffering, there's physical suffering. But suffering to me means going through a very difficult situation, a very painful situation, whether that be emotionally or physically, for a long period of time, a dragged out period of time. And the pain, whether it be emotional or physical, is so excruciating that you think in that situation that it's never going to end. And I have some good news for you. It is going to end. And ultimately, that's a very comforting thought, because ultimately everything ends. Whether that be your emotional suffering or your physical suffering, it will end. When I was a teenager, I would refer to the things that have happened to me and were happening to me as a situation or a challenge. I would talk about it in a very detached way, because I understood from the beginning that talking about it and complaining about it, and especially talking about it with people that you don't trust, that don't mean anything to you, you don't mean anything to them, not really, even if they say that you do, what are they going to do? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to help me? Really, what are you going to do? What is that person, that random person at the counter or at the bar, or even your friends, what are they going to do? Do you think they care? Do you truly think they care? They have their own suffering going on. And in their head, their suffering is much bigger than yours. Because look at you. They always find reasons to justify why your situation is a little bit better. But look, you're a pretty girl. You can, you at least you got that going for yourself. Or you're mentally clear, you're smart, you're a smart girl. You'll figure it out, or whatever excuse. But look, you have a bed to sleep in, and all of that is true. And that is another thing that you need to understand. So number one, yapping about it, talking about it, complaining about it, hoping that other people will save you, wrong move. They're not gonna. They would have to have some kind of investment in actually trying to understand you, which would take quite the long time, and also put you through a lot of pain, because you would have to be very vulnerable and open up a lot. Which, can you do that? That's a question that you need to answer yourself. The second part is, which is almost more important, is that it can always get worse. And you might think, no, my situation is so horrible, it cannot get worse. Oh, it can get worse. Don't expect people to give you credit for anything. If you're waiting to get acknowledged for whatever pain you've been through, you will not. Don't turn the pain and the suffering into your whole identity. In my particular case, it was physical. There was a lot of excruciating physical pain involved, and still is. But because of that physical pain, there comes the emotional pain. And then you have two ways to deal with it. Either you make gold out of garbage, because you're not normal, so you better live a life that's not normal, is what I always say. Or you make that thing your whole identity. You talk about it. When somebody talks about you, they say, oh, she's that girl, who went through XYZ, or who has XYZ, or whatever. It becomes your whole identity. I never wanted that to be the case, because I knew I was so much more, and I never wanted to allow people to use this thing as a weakness of mine, like portray it like it is something where I'm lacking in that regard, and that is why you're above me. And people have this tendency to compare themselves to you automatically. So when they see this weakness, when they see you are in pain, it becomes an opportunity to use it against you and say, you know what, she's pretty. You know what, she's pretty, but she's sick, so that is, I have that one, I have that, I can top her on that one. It becomes this weird power struggle where you're not a full human, like it is something you should be ashamed of. And the thing is, you will feel shame just by yourself already. You don't need people to add on top of that, which they will, and they will try, but you don't need to give them ammunition by talking about it and by exposing it and by exposing yourself and being so vulnerable and so open that you give them the opportunity to use that thing against you. And it has happened with me many, many times, and I have just concluded that there is no point in talking about it, especially with people, like I said, that you don't trust and don't really know, and especially the public, like giving the public an opportunity to be a vulture and eat off of your rotting flesh. No thanks. Let's talk about family and friends and expectations. You will see that people will expect less from you just because they know that maybe when you're going through something, you're capable of less. Let's say you're going through a heartbreak, then maybe people will be a little bit more empathetic for a while and say, you know what, we're not going to burden you with certain things because we know you're going through it. And basically they don't expect of you to get up early in the morning and be productive and be the best student or whatnot. They don't have high expectations for you. And here's something that I will tell you that I needed to sink in. Just because people don't expect things from you doesn't mean that you shouldn't expect things from yourself. Just because people don't have high expectations for you doesn't mean that you should not have high expectations for yourself. And I'm going to tell you exactly why, and it's going to disgust you. But that is how human beings are at their core. And I'm not saying that they are consciously like that, but there is a certain part in us human beings that just cannot let it be. And I'm talking about comparison. Listen, if people don't expect a lot from you, usually these people don't like you very much. And usually these people don't like themselves very much because they keep you around and they don't expect things from you. They will say things like, you know what, you just chill, you just relax, take some time off, take all the time, take 5 years. You don't have to work. You don't have to be the best version of yourself. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to eat right. You don't have to study. You don't have to be motivated. Why? On the surface, it might look like empathy and compassion and like they truly care about you. But what is behind all of that is this thing of, oh, well, if she's chilling, if she's not doing anything to better herself, then I don't have to do anything to better myself. Then I can just relax and I'm already better than her because I'm already doing little things for myself that she isn't. And slowly but steadily, you become that person that people use as their reference for why their life is not as messed up, for why they should not be more ambitious or more motivated or more inspired to do better, because there's always you, and you are doing so much worse. So they will call you up to hear about your failed relationship. They will call you up to hear about your child, your sick child, or you who is going through God knows what illness or pain or loss in your life, and they will call you up and they will want to hear all about it. No, tell me, how are you doing with that? What's the situation on that? How are you after that operation or that chemotherapy or that whatever therapy? How are you after that? How is it going? And they will want to hear every excruciating detail. But the most important detail they want to hear is that you are in fact not doing better. And you think that you can be vulnerable with that person. You can open up because they are your friend, right? They truly want to know. And sometimes you know what they do. But subconsciously what they're doing with that is they're not helping you. They're not helping you by letting you rot in your silence and your little pity pool of nothingness and sadness and grief. And I'm not saying don't take the time to grieve. Please, by all means, take the time to grieve. But your future self will thank you immensely if you grieve and you still work on yourself at the same time. Which takes us to the next thing that I want you to understand, which is there's always agency. And you might think, no, my situation is so bad, there's nothing to be done. I can't do anything. Let me tell you, you can always do something. When I was bedridden for 3 months and I had to learn how to walk again, I thought, oh, yeah, I'm just going to live in a jail of my own mind for months and months and months, and who knows if I'm ever going to make it out of this situation. But you know what I did? And the way I did it is I stayed motivated. I made a plan for my diet. I changed my diet around. I worked out every single day with help and assistance, but it was coming from me. There was no therapist that called me up and was like, hey, we're going to train with you so that you can actually learn how to walk again. We're going to train with you so that you can actually make it out of your situation. Nobody gave a shit. I'm going to tell you how it is. Nobody gave a shit. The doctor said, I don't know if you'll be able to walk again. And I said, what can I do to make it better? What can I do to make it out of this? And they said, I don't know. I'm just the doctor. I'm just here to put you back together. And then, but basically what I'm trying to tell you is that you don't need other people to tell you what is possible. You don't need somebody else. You don't need a doctor. You don't need a financial advisor. You don't need a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend to tell you what's possible and to tell you that you can make it out of whatever hell that you've either made yourself or that was put on you. And nobody's going to ask you either if you want to go through it. When you're in the situation, you're in it, and you better learn how to swim or you're going to drown. And the drowning is not fun because it doesn't end. It just doesn't end. You will keep on sinking. If you don't start swimming, you will keep on sinking until it's ultimately all over. And there is no guarantee that it will be over. That's the thing, because that's the point of suffering, is that it fucking doesn't end. So you really only have one choice, which is to start swimming. It all comes down to your mentality. It all comes down to how strong you are in here specifically, because it needs to come from the heart, not even the brain, because the brain will lie to you. It will tell you this situation is unmanageable, this situation is horrible, you're the most horrible human being in the world, you should be ashamed, you will never make it out. But the heart keeps on believing. The heart keeps on believing that there is a way, and even if there is not a way yet, there is the possibility to keep yourself strong enough and healthy enough, whether that be mentally or physically, until the day where you are better, or until the day where there is a solution for your problem, which you can actively contribute towards. But at the same time, I know that there isn't always a solution, unfortunately. And I'm not going to lie to you, that is a tough pill to swallow when you know that you're not the problem. But actually, it's the world around you that wasn't built for you that is the problem, that doesn't care about you, that lies to you, that wants you to live, but it lets you die inside. Like, it keeps you alive. It's like, you're in a coma and you're there and you're watching other people through a glass wall living their life, and you're alive, but you're not really living. And that's a tough pill to swallow. So in that sense, you need a strong mindset. When you are in these kinds of horrific situations where the physical and the mental, the emotional pain is just overbearing, you go into a mode, like a primal mode that I cannot explain, but you just have that survival instinct. Like I told you about when I, was faced with that particular situation of being completely bedridden and, being completely unable to do anything, basically. My brain went into a mode that I can only describe as flipping a light switch on and off. It's like I completely dissociated and I wasn't there anymore. And the brain does this to protect you. It basically shuts you down. It shuts down everything you are consciously and actively, and goes into this mode of okay, I need to fix myself internally. So you just stay quiet for a while, like take the back seat. And there are so many things that our bodies do automatically that we aren't even aware of, but we should be very grateful for. So if you're scared of whether you can handle a certain kind of suffering, you will maybe actively and consciously perceive the suffering, but your body will subconsciously be doing so many things to fix you that you don't even know about. So please, I hope you can find some comfort in the fact that you don't know what you're capable of until you actually face the situation. And you are capable of so much more than you could ever possibly imagine.